I'm Beth Galbraith. I'm passionate about sewing feminine hygiene kits in order to keep girls in school. In these videos, I want to share with you some of the things that I learned under the tutelage of Brenda Allen, who is the chief of this project at Midwest Mission Distribution Center. I live in the Chicago area, so I could not have hands-on instruction. And the instructions are fabulous, but there were some things that I had to learn by practice and by trial and error and by sending samples back and forth to Brenda. This video is going to be about how to construct and put together a day pad. The night pads are exactly the same, only bigger. And I hope that you will become as excited and passionate about this project as I have been. And one of the first questions is, what on earth is meant by premium flannel? Now this is the best flannel that I can source. This is the size for pads for the night pads. This is for the day pads. And when I originally followed the proper instructions, which said use 3 layers for the day pads and 4 layers for the night pads, I was told that that was too thin. It was not thick enough. So Brenda Allen and I worked really hard to figure out a gauge that we could use so that we could be sure that whatever we were using, it was the proper thickness. And this is what we came up with. We decided that if you take the layers that you plan to use for the pads and add a layer that represents the cover and fold it in half so that you have a double layer of this and it's not compressed, that much should be exactly 1/2 inch tall for a day pad. And for me, for this kind of flannel that I can get, that means 4 layers for the day pads and 6 layers for the night pads, because the night gauge should be 5/8 of an inch. And this is my 5/8 inch gauge. That means that whenever I source a new bolt of fabric, I measure it. Even the same brand from the same vendor is not always exactly the same. The next thing you'll ask is, why is this a rectangle when the pattern shows that the corners should be cut off, making an octagon shape? But here's what I have done, and it has not been objected to. It's been completely acceptable. Once you have this rounded shape, it's time to sew. Remove the PUL. You do not want to get it anywhere close to a pin. Now this is ready to sew with a zigzag stitch. Now it's time to attach the padding to the pad cover. There will definitely be bunching up of the flannel. I find that it works much better just as a regular thing to use a seam ripper or whatever else you like to use to make sure that the top fabric goes through at the same rate as the bottom fabric. And we're done. We get rid of the pins. We don't want them anywhere near the PUL. Now, this is ready to be reunited with its PUL. And now it's time to put the pins completely away, and you pull out your clips. These are wonderful little machines that I did not know about until I started this project. You can find them at any quilt shop. Once you have the clips in place, then you start stitching around the outside. Back stitch a bit. Grab your pusher, whatever you use, seam ripper or whatever you use for making sure that the top fabric goes through the machine at the same rate as the bottom. And now we're at the place where we need to come down a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, that's about enough. Back stitch to secure that. And now it's time to turn it. The music for this video is Simple Gifts, which I chose because it has a verse that talks about the importance of turning correctly. This is a place where fingernails are useful, because you pull the PUL out against the flannel and then finger press to hold it in place along with the clip. And now we come to the place where you have to close up the opening. Turn under 1/4 inch, both the PUL and the flannel. As you can see that in the process of turning, there was stretching that went on, and you will have to ease both sides together to be as smooth as you can. And therefore, you'll need extra clips along here to make sure that your easing stays in place. At this point now, you're ready to do the top stitching, where we top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge all the way around. That holds the closing in place, and it also makes a nice finish. And now we're just going to stitch. We're done. And now I checked to make sure that the stitching caught all the flannel in on the other side as well. After the final top stitching is done, this is what it looks like. But how do you make sure that the snaps are in the right place? The snaps don't have to be cosmetically right at the center of that curve, but they should be at the center of the pad. And so therefore we fold the pad in half, top to bottom, smooth out the PUL if it has gotten bunched up. This is about 1/2 inch, and then that's properly placed to go through the PUL and the flannel and create the hole. Now, I think it's wise to pull out the pieces of the snap that you're going to need for this particular pad, and only this particular pad. That way you can't possibly get confused. If you get into a routine and always do it the same way, you'll never get confused. I always start on the PUL side for the first prong, and I always put the socket in for the first prong. Not that it matters, it could be either one, but this is just my routine. Then you place the button carefully and get it seated well into the pliers and press 1, 2, 3, 4. At my count of 4, I'm just about at the bottom, so that's about the amount of pressure that I need. And now, with this socket up, now I put in the other button. The button has to go on the same side as the socket so that the prong goes on the other side. Otherwise, the snap will not snap. Finally, test. The instructions say to test twice. And there it is. They're all done.